tell for pace. Now, Stravos did take the last series 2-0, but the races were pretty close. So the first one literally came down to SuisaigaW making like a really unfortunate mistake in Moon, which was like, it felt like getting robbed because he got like a weird camera angle and ended up dying on Moon cave skip. And the second one, Stravos did take a little bit of a convincing lead, but was still close pretty much to the end. So I wouldn't necessarily say, yeah, Stravos is definitely going to take this one 2-0 again, especially since... even though I do know SuisaigaW has been playing some other speed games as well, I do know that he still has decent consistency in any percent. Like, I've seen him race, and he's been doing really well still.
Yeah, you know what? And it's kind of funny. With racers like Stravos, Stravos also kind of has that mentality where he's playing other games at the same time. And I think as long as you've got the muscle memory down and in your head, and you're keeping yourself nimble by playing the video games and keeping on it, then it kind of just relates back, and you can kind of pick it up pretty much where you left off as long as you're fresh and ready to go. So even though SuisaigaW has kind of been moving on to Sekiro in recent, just since the game came out, I'm sure he's ready to go here anyways. So this should be a very exciting matchup between these two. And, you know, it's very fascinating to me, the history that these guys have in GSA competitions. That part for me is what makes this particular setup very exciting.
Yeah, even though we haven't, quote unquote, only been going for like not even a year yet, this matchup already has some history. This is already like a traditional matchup. I've been talking about this the last time these two guys met. They've actually been meeting in the World Peace Grand Finals. They've been meeting in the first Grand Final of the first any% tournament we ever had. So yeah, both of them really solid racers all around. So it's pretty much expected to see them in the playoffs. But yeah, once again, this is going to come down to probably also who did more practice recently. Now, Stravos did say in his last interview that he was going to play a lot. He was going to focus a lot on, I guess, no resets and just practicing for this specific race. I'm not sure how much practice SuisaigaW has been doing next to his other speed game runs. But, I mean, we're probably going to see the result here unfolding. And as far as actually route difference goes, this is a pretty interesting matchup because not only doesn't Stravos do the lake clip route, but he also doesn't do the tree route and wooded. So we are going to be seeing some live comparisons throughout this match. Starting in lake, probably for the first time, we won't really see any new sand ideas as far as like the late crate road goes. No one has been doing that in any race. I would once again be super excited to see that live at pace, but I think that still has ways to go. There has been some additions to this game as far as like practice mods are concerned. I'm not sure how much you heard about that, but there's actually like a mod floating around where you can kind of like reset moons by warping. That runners have been now using to actually practice stuff like late crate more efficiently.
Yeah, I actually have heard a little bit about that. And very fascinating development for Super Mario Odyssey, because as of this moment, we never really had any practice tools, unlike other games where, you know, Super Mario World, even Super Mario 64, anything that has an emulator, you are able to kind of manipulate the game in a way, reset it back to a state immediately at the press of a button. Of course, the Switch doesn't have any sort of emulation or ROM hacking tools available to us. So any of our practice basically has to be done painstakingly and manually. So, you know, the development of this kind of stuff is very fascinating and will probably help us quite a lot in the future.
Yeah, because it feels like at this point, that the bigger time saves that we can somehow still get are probably... you probably are gonna have to do some pretty ridiculous stuff. So late crate is one of the newest additions, extremely hard to perform optimally. And unless we find a major discovery, we discover anything major, SuisaigaW actually missing Dino Skip there, which kind of threw me off. But unless we discover anything like major, all future time saves are probably gonna rely on us doing some crazy movements, such as like the brunch and jump, which is something that's still not really fully explored. Or yeah, stuff like late crate.
Yep, and late crate in itself is a very good idea. The only reason it's not being implemented into a lot of race runs nowadays is just because of how extremely tight that one cycle has to be.
Now, what's interesting actually, Stravos just missed that one Madame Brutal phase, and he almost lost as much time to it than what Sui lost prior in the entirety of Cascadim. And what's even more interesting is that's actually the 3rd out of 3 times that Strauss has made exactly that mistake. It's really weird. Like in all of these races in the series, he missed 1 phase on Madame Bruder so far. Even in the last series, both matches. He won both, but that actually happened every time so far.
Giving up time, maybe it comes down to just trying to do that as optimally as possible, getting that cap throw to hit as soon as you possibly can, and maybe just missing the timing a little bit. You see these kinds of things with Equan and with little curves when they are trying to, cut the corners as quickly and as tightly as they can. Sometimes you just take a bonk as a bit of a punishment for these very tight optimizations. So maybe what's happening with Stravos here, but he does still maintain a lead as we grab this this power moon at the top of the cliff, and chest clip coming up here.
Yep. Like the position there from Stravos. Not sure if he's actually going to clip through. He will, because on the right side, the ceiling is a little bit stubborn because there's multiple ceilings. SuisaigaW probably touched the moon a little bit too early, causing him to not even get any up warp, so he was not able to perform that out-of-bounds clip, causing Stravos to extend his small lead that he had after Madame Bruder going into sand.
Yep, and he's gonna take what he can get here with sand coming up. So as far as we know, nobody has really been trying this late crate route in races. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't think we've seen it. We might have seen it in one of Equan's league races, I'm pretty sure. That was pretty much very shortly after the discovery of that. It hasn't been going well, to say the least, which wasn't necessarily due to him messing up the move or anything. It was mostly due to him actually dying to Jaxi skip.
Yeah, so, that'll happen.
Yep, haven't really seen anyone successfully completed in a race so far. Now let's see fast action guy skips. Stravos actually got a relatively fast one. SuisaigaW sitting in that text for a little bit longer, causing him to drop some additional time. So Stravos, once again, even if it's just by less than a second, extending his lead.
And you really cannot stress enough just how much those little seconds really do matter at this level. If you both have the run of your lives, it's really going to come down to these tiny little things that change the course of the entire race.
And just according to some questions obviously coming up when we bring up terminology like late crate, essentially all you need to do in that route, quote unquote, all you need to do is you actually don't do the room that these runners are in right there. It's technically not the slowest moon in the world, but it does have 2 loading zones and like this pipe animation at the end, so it is the slowest moon in this sand route these guys are doing. So if you just skip that room and instead actually pick up this moon from a crate after you do the Sphinx clip section, you're still out of bounds, you're grabbing that moon in the hidden room by the quicksand, and you can actually still stay out of bounds and make your way up on top of the ceiling, break the crate, and kind of actually get the moon along the way towards that bullet bill section. That's the only reason this moon is fast enough, because you route it inefficiently in a way that you kind of get it along your way. It's really hard though, because since you pick up an additional moon during the bird cycle that activates whenever you actually leave the Sphinx room, if you make any sorts of mistakes, you can easily miss the bird or actually just get the bird in an optimal position. Now SuisaigaW actually bonking right there. There's a really cool setup for backing up Dram like this. If he's able to actually backflip on top of this ice pillar into an up throw, it looks like he will try it, but Bullet Bill didn't seem to be in the right position. He could have captured. He can still capture this bill. This timer of this Bullet Bill just reset due to him capturing it for the first time, so he is going to make it all the way over there. If he had captured it before, that wouldn't have been enough to make it over, so decent backup for Sui, but definitely still a pretty big time loss.
Interesting thing to note about this whole late crate route is that for the longest time in any percent, we did include the crate in our routing, and we did a little bit of a double dram situation. So you would do your original dram strat, you would break open the crate, and you would manipulate a second bullet bill in a way that you could grab the crate moon and then be on your way. But, of course, that does take quite a bit of time, and we realized that the Notes moon at the end of the Oasis was much more optimal, and that's what we've been going with. But with some out-of-bounds tomfoolery, essentially what you'd be seeing here is SuisaigaW going for the second clip. He would be grabbing the moon in the Shifting Sands room, and then he would be on his way to the crate after this with some out-of-bounds action. So he'd be doing like a little ground pound and getting up back inbounds somewhere else. Exactly. But again, the cycle for this is extremely tight. You have to get your second Sphinx clip essentially perfect. You have to have all of your movement at essentially Equan levels of efficiency in order to get to the bird on time at the end, and it's very, very difficult to do.
Yeah, kind of. I feel like once people get really good, they are at least allowed to miss swing slip once, but on that second miss, the bird is probably gone. The thing is, even if you don't catch, not capture, but if you don't hit the bird at the optimal spot, there is still some time save to be acquired. But the movement after that hidden quicksand room is already really hard. So it's just hard overall, all across the board. Nycro's record at the time and also Goyuya sub-hour both used it in their respective sense. And I think they both got a sub-10 exit, which is not impossible without late crate, but incredibly hard. With a successful late crate, sub-10 is actually really feasible. Like, it's not too crazy. We've seen 940 54s, I think, which is just insane. Obviously using that late crate route. Stravos will not get anything like that today. He did have some issues, obviously, in Cascade, but Sand overall going decently and just extending his lead across the board.
And Suisaiga just, looks like he's taking a little bit of time to get the ball rolling here. Just a couple of minor mistakes throughout Sand Kingdom. Nothing tragic, nothing that is going to be what I would consider to be a run kill. But that being said, he is, taking a couple extra tries at the Sphinx clip. He is taking just a little bit slower movement options in general. So missing some of his ground pounds optimally here. And, that's all that Stravos really needs to kind of broaden his lead and take it into Lake Kingdom here.
Yeah. Now, we could have just went ahead and just looked at the exact difference right here going into Lake, but I am already sure that we are going to be seeing some routing difference here. We did see Suisaiga before he started this race at least practice the Lake clip, and I'm absolutely sure he's at least going to try to do it in this race. Stravos, however, will not opt to do so, so we are going to be seeing both editions of the Lake Kingdom route, and then after Lake, it's probably a good time to check how the difference is really looking like. Now, keep in mind, if you do the Lake clip route that Suisaiga is probably going to be showing off here after he grabs that second moon, you get some additional time saved due to a Cappy text that comes up on your map the first time you open it when a checkpoint is active. It's just Cappy telling you, hey, you have a checkpoint, you can actually click to warp there. And Suisaiga is going to get that out of his way in this kingdom. Stravos is going to approach that text later in Metro when he does a warp. First try clip from Sui, gets capital clip first try, no fake clip, instant checkpoint, pinpoint grab. Is probably going to get the most optimal time save possible here. So might save as much as 5 seconds throughout Lake, and then some additional time maybe in Metro. Stravos obviously is going to be fighting the Rango boss fight here. The nice thing that you can actually do, I'm not sure if Stravos is going to opt to do so. Okay, he didn't. He grabbed some coins after that boss. He's pretty good on coins. If you're low on coins and if you are fighting Rango, you can actually end this fight with a spin throw. That spin throw will kind of circle you, and as you drop down to the ground while you get that multi-moon, it's basically going to pick up all of these 20 coins scattered around Rango.
And that's going to make it very easy for Stravos to maintain his coin count. Even if something were to go drastically wrong, he would be safe, essentially, when he gets to Snow Kingdom later on. He wouldn't have to worry about his coin counts, even if there were some mishaps along the way.
Exactly. Right, but so Stravos obviously still keeping his lead. Lake clip is not going to be enough to completely eradicate the lead that Stravos has been building up to. But we are going to be seeing that screen closing here on Stravos' side to see what kind of failure he actually got. Looks like a 1308, barely there. And we are also going to be seeing that happen for Sui soon. So we can actually kind of gauge the difference between these two.
And a 1308 without the Lake clip is exceptional. Very, very good time from Stravos here.
Especially if we keep in mind that he missed like a full Madame Brutal phase in Cascade. So other than that, this run has really been looking good. SuisaigaW at a 25, so we are looking at around 17 seconds of difference here going into Wooded. We are also going to be seeing another routing difference here again. Stravos is not going to go for the moon in the tall tree. There's a nuts planted there. Instead, going to be picking up the story moon from the piranha plant, which is with optimal movement a little bit slower. And SuisaigaW is probably going to be trying to get that time safe. But as far as Wooded is concerned, we are probably looking at other mistakes, such as Stravos actually missing that bunny, but that's actually losing him a lot of time right off the bat.
Yep, that is deceivingly costly for the time. Probably somewhere in the ballpark of about 4 seconds, giving SuisaigaW the opportunity to catch up a little bit.
Yeah, obviously after seeing that we do have some new viewers, I'm gladly explaining some of the more general stuff. Obviously, we are buying 2 moons throughout this entire speedrun route. Ooh, Stravos, unfortunate bonk. Let's actually focus on the nut clip section first before I get into the coin routing, because this is a major trick. Stravos actually struggling a little bit, taking his time to set up this clip. Is gonna clip through the wall using the moon clip. You basically throw Cappy while you are upside down. This will cause you to tilt during the moon cutscene, pushing you into the wall. Stravos performed that optimally and is going to be able to travel through that out-of-bounds section now. I feel like we could actually be extremely close right now. Keep in mind, SuisaigaW just picked up an extra moon, so he is not going to have to pick up that story moon by the piranha plant later.
Yes, so once we get to that piranha plant, we will be more able to see just how close these guys are together. And SuisaigaW saving about 2 seconds at an optimal level when doing this tree route, not to mention the bunny mishap that Stravos had at the beginning of Wooded Kingdom. So
yeah, and he bonked. That was like pretty big bonk on the nut in the tunnel, which is the nut we use for that clip.
Yeah, so all of these little things added together, we will be able to see just how close these guys actually are. So Stravos killing that piranha plant immediately here. He's going to be coming around the corner, getting this nut at the dead end. Meanwhile, SuisaigaW will not have to worry about the piranha plant or its cutscene at all. He will just continue along with Flower Rose Skip from where about Stravos is now. So it is pretty tight. We will see who's out on top here.
For sure, good point coming out of chat right there that I briefly want to touch on. This is the second series. In fact, I'm gonna inform production about this, because usually we have a little indicator. Ooh, very fancy from Suida, spin point into up throw to actually grab that nut right there. He's almost gonna close the gap. But yeah, Stravos did win the first series. Usually we have a little indicator showing that off. So it's basically 1 point to Stravos as far as series are concerned. So Stravos did win the first best of 3. Stewie actually got a really unfortunate mistake. He got spat on by the piranha plant, so he's gonna have it to sit through a damage refill here.
But is keeping pretty solid pace with Stravos still. They're both in the tower at the same time. Probably not looking at much more than 10 to 15 seconds of difference. And Wooded is not over yet.
Definitely not. And this last section is pretty notorious to still cause some nasty mistakes. Actually, in the first series, Stravos made a very big series of mistakes in the flooding pipeway. Actually took damage 3 times during that, and that didn't kill him because he took damage once on before the first moon, and then twice before the second moon. But overall, actually lost his lead in that subgroup. Now, that's something I haven't really seen him do much, but as you mentioned, Wooded is definitely not over at this point.
Yeah, approaching that pipeway now. I feel like everybody, the most fascinating thing about this pipeway for me is that it's unanimously one of the most frustrating places to lose inputs. Everybody kind of hates this room for that, but everybody also has their own way of doing it. There's just about no way that you can kind of miss out optimally. As long as you're kind of making the same cycle, you can kind of improvise your movement in whatever way works for you. So depending on what wall you decide to use for your wall jumps, depending on how you approach the first moon, use a spin jump, use a regular ground pound. It's all very kind kind of open, free flow to interpretation, and I think that's why I like this room so much.
Yeah, for sure. It's really you're really vulnerable to mistakes in that room. It's kind of like the poison room in Snow, because if you die in the poison room, or if you make a mistake during these cycle rooms, you have to really freestyle. But also makes it interesting. Now, fade out happened for Sui there, as Stravos is already leaving the kingdom. We are probably looking at around 10 seconds of difference here going into Cloud. So would it really changing things up a little bit? About 7 seconds that SuisaigaW actually made up, even though he did get spat on by the Piranha plant, causing him to deal with some interesting backups, but he made it count. Stravos mainly got hit by the bunny there. I mean, he didn't hit the bunny, so he lost time. And also at that nut section.
Yep, goes to show. Stravos, I think, is playing just a little bit cleaner than Sui, but Sui is also opting for some of the faster, some of the more harder strats, and that's what's kind of keeping his pace here, so definitely worth.
It's really interesting over the course of time how that actually changed, because it used to be Stravos that actually went for like everything. You know, Stravos used to be...
He was infamous for that, yeah.
Yeah, he used to be like the guy that's, whenever we started his best theoretical timesheet, keeping track of the best movement sections from like moon to moon. And the first iteration of that, he had like 50% of the entire sheet, because he pushed the game really hard at this point. But I think he also took a little bit of a break, and now that he's going for more consistency in races and more performance-oriented in that, he probably, adapted accordingly.
Yeah, it is quite fascinating to think that, you know, when the late clip was being integrated, that was about the time that Stravos kind of took this mentality shift. And it, you know, the Stravos of the past definitely would have been the first on board with something like late clip and integrating it immediately into his runs, into his races, no problem. That's kind of just how Stravos was known to be. But it has definitely kind of shifted the tides, and now he's actually, out of the 12 that were in the league, he was one of only 2 racers not actually going for this late clip, which is quite fascinating turn of events.
Right now, Lost coming up. Stravos going to be long jumping into that moon on the propeller. Let's see if SuisaigaW opts to do something else. We've seen spin ponds there. Maybe a little bit quicker. He's gonna opt for long jump instead. Though the long jump there actually is really fast. In this game, we usually try to avoid long jumps wherever we can. But there's certain sections where they still tend to be really good. Now, the reason we do that, compared to SM64, where long jumps are actually one of the most used tool, is that the long jump actually initially sets us to a specific amount of speed in this game. So when we are going really fast, a long jump will actually slow us down.
Yeah, every long jump kind of has this gradual speed increase, and if you're going at full speed and change to a long jump, it actually resets it back to that slower speed. But you do come out of a long jump with max speed as well. So in a situation where you're already at kind of 0, and you need to get a very long distance without really moving, that is probably the best situation for a long jump, as is the case after grabbing that butterfly here.
Okay, SuisaigaW going obviously for the up throw roll cancel there. Good stuff from him, causing him to get out of that bridge a little bit quicker. And yeah, as far as movement options are concerned, obviously when we do want to close really big gaps, a long jump can work, but if we can use what we'd like to call the roll cancel, which actually gives us some horizontal momentum after roll canceling off an edge, that's usually preferable. You see it over the course of this race in multiple instances, but there's still long jumps used, especially for these kind of, especially actually in Night Metro, a very crucial long jump inside of the city hall later, another one to actually grab the first moon here. But in an optimal world, you would probably cut out as many long jumps as possible and replace them with either roll cancels or vaults or dive vaults, which is actually a cappy vault out of a dive. Really awkward input to do. There's not many in the speedrun at the moment, but that's probably how the future and also the best theoretical timesheet at this point already are looking like.
Yeah, there's just a couple of things that you really have to take into consideration when you're going from basically 0 to 100. and long jump, I think, works really well because you can initiate it with very little space. And the problem with like a roll cancel off of an edge, for example, is that you do not really get very much vertical height off of it. So if you, for the case of this City Hall jump, if you were to try and do a roll cancel off of that ledge, you would not be able to get high enough to get across. So that is why a long jump is so handy. And also, something like a vault requires a little bit of space to kind of give yourself a runway. And in this case, yeah, exactly. In this case, there is nothing quite like that, so a long jump is necessary.
So the bonk is okay. Sui going for the freestyle. Okay, very nicely done by SuisaigaW. He actually, I was about to tell you that this bonk is quite unfortunate because he was going to miss the first cycle of the elevator, but he used the movement for a strat that is actually available to you there in the city hall. Espa, and I kind of call it the Goyuya cycle because he did it first, kind of skipping that elevator initially. But yeah, Sui missed the cycle and then freestyled his movement up to that pole. Very nice.
In a way that he was not losing too much time as well. Very well done.
Okay, time for Mecha Wiggler, and viewers of this game know this section as an infamous first instance of pretty big variance as far as time save is concerned. That is actually due to RNG. Now this Wiggler, this huge Mecha Wiggler actually has different patterns that he can kind of pull out when he approaches out of the wall. We are going to see it here at Stravos' screen, and these patterns are random. There's a certain variety of patterns, but you don't know which one you're going to get. Now Stravos actually missing his first shot here, which is not too bad if he does a quick backup shot, and he actually did. That was pretty much amazing backup from Stravos getting that backup shot. But you are going to see on Sui's screen he's going to get a different pattern here, and he has to react to it accordingly. A little bit slow here, hopefully getting these shots in time. He will, probably losing some time over Stravos. We are getting what we like to call the 2 cycle here. Basically defeating the Wiggler the first time he comes out of the wall. I guess the second, it's actually the first time he comes out of the wall. That is what matters most, because if you miss that, you will go back into the wall and you lose a lot of time. But there's still big differences depending on how fast you get the 2 cycle.
And how fast you get the 2 cycle really does depend on the pattern that you get. It is RNG, but he is not completely random in his patterns. There's probably about a dozen different ones. And, you know, as a runner of this game, I've pretty much seen all of them, but there are definitely some that you dislike more than others. SuisaigaW actually got one of the ones that I'm not a big fan of, where he kind of loops across himself over the top. It's one of my least favorite ones.
Yeah, that's for sure. Now Stravos approaching the scooter clip. We use a hidden motion control there. If you turn around your controller, the scooter will basically take sharper turns, and we use that to actually kind of steer into the cage. Mario's head will clip through the cage and actually get the moon. SuisaigaW with an amazingly fast, what we like to call drive-by scooter clip. Stravos took a little bit of time, actually drove into the cage slightly. But yeah, you said that earlier. It looks like SuisaigaW, even though Stravos is playing extremely solid, is pretty much in every section he's trying to kind of outpace him with faster strats.
And yeah, that's working both to his benefit and to his disadvantage, because the things that he's doing, he's obviously saving time on, but the things that he's failing are just allowing Stravos' consistency to propel him and keep his lead. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Now Stravos now starting his quest to acquire the musicians, to get them on the team. Keep in mind that we did mention earlier that after the second musician, Stravos is going to have to perform a warp up to the top. This is a checkpoint he got on his way to Mecha Wiggler. And since he didn't do the lay clip route earlier, which uses a warp, he is going to get that little cappy text right there, and is going to be losing around 1.5 seconds seemingly out of nowhere against SuisaigaW, but that's because SuisaigaW already got the text out of the way. We are not probably really going to see the difference here. I mean, we are, but it's not going to be like a live comparison because Sui is a little bit behind. But I still like to point it out because it is a huge difference, especially if you are really good at warping, which sounds like an easy skill, but actually doing that from that black screen can be kind of hard. So you see Stravos now gets the text here. There's like one text line that he has to mesh through. And when Suisaiga is done with the bassist here, you are going to see how that looks without that text. Because if you know where the checkpoint flag is, the warp is pretty much already starting whenever the screen starts showing again. Let's check this out real quick as the story mode closes. And yeah, definitely a little bit of a visible difference.
And anybody who's never speedrun before, you know, something as simple as selecting something on a menu screen might seem like a very easy task and probably not the most intensive gameplay as far as a casual is concerned. But when it comes to speedrunning and making sure that you're getting those inputs, and you have to make sure, you know, you got to press down 5 times, and you got to, you know, when it comes to menuing is actually probably one of the most tedious and tricky things to do in a speedrun.
Absolutely. The spin point here on top of the City Hall, which Suisaiga didn't opt to do. Actually, something I've been noticing. He seems to be in a good spot to perform it, but he just opts to go for the double cap dive, which is really like a drastic amount slower. And when I say drastic, it's like close to a second, which doesn't sound drastic, but getting a full second for like any trick is usually something runners want. And if it's just a spin point over a cap dive, that's something at this point in time everybody wants that. And I'm interested why he doesn't go for that.
Yeah, interesting to see why. Maybe because missing it just kind of loses you just another
For
second
sure.
on top.
At least, because you like spin pound down and then you have to back up a spin pound, and then it's just awkward.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, actually, Stravos here with a solid Metro exit is not going to get the fabled sub 30, which at this point in time really signals a great run, but he's just barely going to miss it. Looking at a 30.05, I think, for him. Yep. Suisaiga less than 20 seconds behind, though, going into Snow. Both of them had healthy coin counts, which is something that I actually didn't get to finish explaining during Wooded Kingdom because we had so much things going on. They already bought a moon in Wooded Kingdom, but there's another moon that we buy in Snow. It's sadly there's incredibly slow moons in Snow. There's not much. We can't really choose much, but the shop still is one of the fastest ones. So we want to pick that up, and we need 100 coins for it. Now, if you don't have 100 coins, the run is not over. You just have to either pick up a slower moon in Snow or go to Seaside first, which actually gives you some coins. But that's not a big deal. Now, you also get around 10 is actually a little bit more coins along your way in Snow. So even if you only have 90, you will still be fine. Stravos is going to get that 1 extra coin for free. But it's something to always kind of look at because it's interesting.
Kind of interesting to note also, we were mentioning that Stravos is probably going to be fine on his coin count coming into Snow Kingdom, but he's actually under. Suisaiga is over. Didn't take any deaths or anything along the way. Must have just not been very optimal in collecting coins throughout the rest of the run, which is not a big deal. He was within that kind of 10 coin amount that you said, so he will be able to pick up what he needs in Snow Kingdom. As long as there are no deaths, as long as these 2 sub-areas go optimally and we don't fall into the poison or anything, Stravos will be just fine, capping out over 100 here.
You know, it's actually pretty interesting how much of an effort we do in highlighting that, because in an optimal world, going to Seaside first loses like no time, really. Actually, let's look at the Snow clip happening real quick here, because Stravos, since we have both been really good at doing that, Stravos will get that. Another moon clip causing us to be pushed through the door and entering this loading zone here a little bit quicker than going all the way around. Yeah, overall, if you don't have enough coins to go to Seaside first, it wouldn't lose like anything. Like getting a more unoptimal spin pound would lose more time.
Exactly. And it just, I think, goes back into the whole menuing conversation that we just had, where menuing is not entirely the easiest thing.
True.
You know, these runners have splits set up in a way that, you know, they have one kingdom set up before the other. It's not really easy to switch those in the middle of a run or anything like that. So you just kind of go with the easiest one. If it's much easier to mash A, then you might as well just do that.
Yeah, I guess the most important thing is that you actually don't want to go out of your way for coins. If you can avoid that in any shape or form, that's what matters, really.
Exactly.
And if it's just going to Seaside first, that's fine. Stravos actually bonking on exactly that point, which is probably the most common mistake in Snow, because you have to kind of go out of the pipe and then find your angle quickly to be able to roll all across that hallway to actually enter this room. You'd either bonk there or in the hallway. Actually, Sui probably, I think he bonked in both of his races in that section the last time, but that's an optimal line right there. Fast roads into the Goomba room. And the Gooba Room is kind of a very representative room for Snow Kingdom, because we are forced to pick up these moons. There's no better option for us than these 2 moons, but these 2 moons are actually so slow that they are not even part of the 500 moons speedrun of this game. The darker side speedrun skips out on these moons because they're too slow for a speedrun that gets 500 moons, but since the darker side speedrun also has access to all of the post-game moons in Snow, they can just get more optimal moons instead. Now, Stravos actually pressing B in the shop. I'm not sure what happened there. He like opened the shop and pressed B. And now he had to re-talk to the guy.
Just giving up a couple extra seconds, giving Sui a chance to catch up a little bit.
That's weird. Yeah, really weird time loss. But Snowjam coming up, this is a relatively common time loss. We don't see it too much anymore, but this is a pretty drastic one if you miss it. Won't let that happen though.
All right. Stravos' Snow Dram looking just fine. Sui clearing the gap by a mile. And going for the Shrine bounce, but actually jumping over his hat. Not a big deal. Able to get across the gap just fine otherwise. And we are still only within maybe 15 seconds of each other here as we enter Seaside Kingdom.
Really close. 49 fade out for Stravos there. Looks like SuisaigaW might maybe be like 17 seconds behind again. Let's actually see. 49 to an 06. So actually, yeah, 17 seconds of difference here. Going into Seaside. Now, Seaside has been known as the Stravi side, which is kind of like a little nickname that we gave Stravos, even though Stravos is obviously already his nickname. But yeah, he's pretty good at this kingdom.
Yep, and before we were talking about Stravos, he's just having a little bit of trouble getting up the cliff here, but we were talking about Stravos and how he had kind of dominated the best theoretical time as other people started getting more invested in the best theoretical timesheet, and some of his time started coming off. Stravos was the one who kind of maintained Seaside, and Seaside was kind of his baby, his golden child. Things have kind of changed again as time has gone on, but when the new Seaside fish clip route was discovered, he was one of the first pioneers to try and really push down his sum of best to there and see how good we could do.
Uh-oh, Stravos actually getting a pretty common mistake here. These first 3 moons in Seaside are probably the most prone to actually get a mistake, and especially this one, I'd say. Stravos briefly missing that moon. It's kind of really debating you, I'm gonna have to say. This seems like a kind of 2D... I mean, it seems like a 3D section, but we are forced in like this 2D kind of camera perspective, really making it easy to miss grabbing that moon. Now, Sui also didn't really get a nice line towards the cheap here, which this section seems kind of odd in Seaside because it's such a long section without picking up any moons. But we are just going to be traveling across the kingdom to start this part of Seaside, which is the underwater part, which actually gives us access to extremely quick moves underwater and ends it all off with a pretty cool out-of-bounds clip.
Yeah, used to be that we would go kind of around towards the beach house, collect one quick moon that spawned after doing some music notes, but that was probably the slowest moon in the route. It just so happens that by going out of bounds and into a loading zone that is very nearby where this final moon in the route was, we are able to shave off about 5 to 6 seconds. So you're going to see Stravos do it here, setting himself up along the very edge of the map, and then uncapturing and recapturing the cheap to get back inbounds. And now it has to be very careful here not to clip back inbounds. As far as I know, we haven't really seen that happen in this top level of play. I think everybody who has been trying this trick out knows exactly what they need to do.
I wish I could agree with you, and I think I agree with you as far as that we haven't really seen it, but actually Sui in the last 2 races really gave me a hard time. Because he took like a really risky line. In the second race, he actually almost flipped back in. I liked his approach more this time, made it look really safe, and was also able to get that moon from out of bounds and then get that quick swings moon. So I think overall he might have made up some time, even though he had some issues actually initially capturing the cheap, but the mistake that Stravos had happened to him on that third moon was probably a little bigger. We got a nice clean fade out here, 38-20 for Stravos. This is around the time where we would split, and looks like it's going to be a 31 for Sui. So only 11 seconds left as far as Stravos' speed is concerned. It was 17 going into this kingdom, so Sui is really, really close to him. This is the race.
This is a race, and it's coming down to the wire. You know, as we enter the late game, you know, this being especially one of the kingdoms to watch for, Luncheon Kingdom, things can go wrong very quickly here. Little time saves really do matter, and Luncheon has a lot of them.
Exactly. Suisaiga starting the section off with a spin pound, then roll across towards the salt pile. Gets the moon on top. And yeah, Luncheon is the most technical king. I'd say it is the most technical kingdom in the late game.
For sure.
If you consider this late game already. Bowser's is obviously also technical, so is Moon, but as far as like full movement intensive kingdom, I think after... Yeah, I mean, together with like Sand and Wooded, I'd say these three are probably like the most technical kingdoms.
Certainly. Wooded, for sure. I would say that Wooded is to the early game what Luncheon is to the late game. There are a lot of technical sections. There's a lot of movement-heavy stuff. If you mess up any bit of the movement, you're looking at losses of like maybe 3 to 4 seconds each, and it just comes barreling at you one after another, after another, after another, after another. And if you lose your momentum, it can really start to spell a bad Luncheon Kingdom for you. But if you keep the momentum, then it's amazing. I think we were talking about this a couple of streams ago, where you can look at a Luncheon and you can say, man, that guy did really well, but he's still coming out at like, at 40, for example. But then it just comes down to these little fine-tuned details in literally every single part of it that make the difference between a 4x and a 2x all of a sudden.
Yeah, exactly. I also really like to consider Luncheon to be split in around 3 sections. It's actually more like 4 in my mind. But I always like to say that the first part is, while being a little bit tricky, a little bit less painful and less risky. It's pretty much up until this, not next moon, but the moon after the pod moon, that Luncheon really gets spicy. It starts off with a very closed performance of some movement to be able to get the first cycle of the apparently fire bubble or lava bubble are the official names of these guys. We've always liked to call them Podebu, which I think is the official name in some type of game, but in this game, apparently, according to the guide, these enemies that Stravos tries to capture in a second are called lava bubble or fire bubble. And we need to get our way over there quickly. Stravos is going to be able to show this off, doesn't have to even do any camera manipulation, and gets that enemy to capture pretty much perfectly.
Yeah, the traditional way of getting this particular cycle was to have the Podebu, or the lava bubble, I suppose, off of the screen for a while, and just raise your camera as you were approaching the Salt Pile Island. That was going to give you ample time to set yourself up, get the ground pound, and capture the lava bubble with no problems. But us being speedy boys have discovered a way to do it without any camera manipulation, obviously the fastest way.
Exactly. Now, Forks actually still really risky room. I feel like this is kind of a cursed room. Many amazing runs have found their demise in that room. These runners will not make a mistake today. But it's not even because of the difficulty, it's just because of our reliance on motion controls, which, yes, they are fine. I mean, they're not really fine. I wish we wouldn't need to use them. But they are okay. They are not like super inconsistent. But yeah, it doesn't work every time. And if it doesn't work, then you run into issues there. Now, Stravos actually had to reset up the turnip there, which wasn't too bad. He just had to kind of replace it quickly. But if Sui is going to be able to get, I'm not liking this position though. I was about to say,
neither.
If he was, yeah, if he was going to be able to get that first try, he might have made up some time. But doesn't get the optimal position, pretty much the same. Actually, probably Stravos' turnip clip was a little bit faster because he did his first throw from further away. both of them getting it relatively fine. We've seen some big time losses here recently, but nothing too scary in this matchup, so it's going to stay close. And it's probably, unless a mistake happens in this last section of Luncheon, which is deceptively easy, but really isn't. We've seen world record pace, and actually one of the first of our paced runs from Nicro die there. But I'm not assuming. I think we won't see big mistakes, and if you're not seeing big mistakes here, other than Sui having some issues here getting good movement, we can probably almost think of it that we are at least going to have a close race into Bowser's, because if Ruined doesn't entirely decide the race, which would cause one of them to die, it's probably not going to change much.
Both of these players running Luncheon about the same, to be honest. No real mistakes to speak of here, except for just the turnip clip setup, but both of them kind of suffering the same problem there, having to reset and getting it on their reset, no problems. So this race still incredibly tight.
Absolutely. Now going into Ruined, to all of the newer runners, not the newer runners, but also the newer runners, I guess, but also the newer viewers, and maybe even viewers that haven't even seen this game, but if you play this casually, this game, you know what Ruined Kingdom is all about, and it's not much. Especially in the first visit, there is 4 moons that we can pick up, one being in a chest below the kind of staircase leading up to the main platform, the main area, the main fighting arena, which is entirely useless for us in any percent, because this 1 moon is not enough for us to leave, and we also don't need 4 moons. So all we really need to do is actually take care of the dragon. And this dragon is a pretty scripted, kind of auto-scrolly fight that we just have to sit through. We can't really speed it up. Gives runners a chance to take some quick breaths, but not necessarily too intense.
Gives us an opportunity to launch the Ruined Trash Talk section.
The Ruined Trash Talk. So actually, I haven't really prepared much. This is something that Dangerous and I have been doing for a while. We have already been talking about interesting topics recently, such as the potential 1.3 patch for Odyssey that might cause some big panic. But talking about the specific patch, it's actually on a specific date. It's on the 25th of April. But Dangerous, do you know what is also on the 25th of April?
Oh, well, I just do so happen to know. Is the very first day of our very own PACE event, where the live results of these playoff matches are going to be taking place.
That sounds awesome. I think actually if you type an ! PACE in chat, there just happens to be a magical command that takes you to the smash.gg page of this event, giving you all of the information. Registration is still open, but not only are we going to be seeing the finals of the 4 best Odyssey runners, which are going to be Nicrovida, Chaos Pregel, Lil Curbs, and the winner of this is not necessarily the series, but this specific matchup. We are also obviously going to be seeing the Celeste finals, the SM6470 Star finals. We are going to be having a ton of showcase runs, just content all around. It's a 24/7 event, and if you can make it, that would obviously be awesome to meet all of you guys. But even if you just want to stay in the comfort of your own home, we are going to be live broadcasting that entire event on that channel. So if you're not following yet, you definitely don't want to miss that one.
Yep, you are in the right place to see it from home. If you do not attend the event yourself, twitch.tv/speedrun. Make sure you drop a follow, and you will be up to date. April 25th through the 28th, you will be seeing basically the top runners of this, as well as Super Mario 64 and Celeste. So very exciting stuff coming your way. I will be there. Limcube will be there. Do not delay on getting those tickets. We want to see you. We want to meet you guys.
If you can get there, that would obviously be awesome. All right, we got through Ruin. This is pretty much the intention of the specific segment that Dangerous and I like to do. We won't really see much difference here. Both of them have solid movement towards the fight. Both of them without any risks in the dragon fight. I do like to tune it back when someone actually gets on 1 HP, because there is still this tiny possibility that a death does happen, which at this level of play, yeah, especially in this matchup, a Ruined Death would decide the race. I have never seen these guys apart more than like 2 or 3 minutes, so I could pretty much guarantee that a death in this kingdom would decide a race between Stravos and Sui.
Yeah, these guys just such a chemistry in competitive play. It's rather amazing, you know. And the two finals that these guys have found themselves in against each other, one in the Any Percent League that was essentially the premier event of GSA competition for Super Mario Odyssey, and then of course the World Peace one directly afterwards. Seeing these guys come to the finals, seeing these guys trade championships essentially, Stravos taking the Any Percent victory, Suisaiga taking the World Peace Tournament. It's fascinating to see just how the history of these guys and see just how far they've come and how close they've been able to stay all of this time as well.
Yeah, and once again, as a reminder, this is the second series in this matchup. Stravos won the first series 2-0, so if he wins the series, he makes it. If Sui wins the series, there's going to be a third one on Friday. Actually, no, it might be tomorrow. Let me check. Yeah, it will be tomorrow. Wait, would it? Yeah, it would be tomorrow if Sui wins this one, the definite last one for Odyssey. But once again, it could be over today if Stravos manages to not only keep this lead, but also win the second race. Ooh, almost actually missing the chart. He wasn't confident. Cappy actually doing a good job for once and homing into the shard. He was about to turn around, but Cappy didn't let him down.
Yeah, good thing too, he was already like miles off of the building. If he had missed that homing, he would probably have to find some sort of unique way to kind of come back up around. So, lucky call for Stravos here. Suisaiga following suit, does have 4 out of the 5 shards. Just got to capture this Pokio and grab the last one. And amazing how tightly the pace has been for both of these guys. Yeah. You know, the differences in their routing at the beginning is probably what kept them so close together, but now they're essentially doing more or less the same thing. Stravos actually going for the ground pound off the railing here. Not a strategy I've seen a whole lot of other runners employ, but potentially a more consistent way for him.
Yep, that's a signature one for sure. He kind of does like a normal ground pound on that railing. Suisaiga is, I'm sure, gonna be showing us the other version here with the spin pound, which I like personally more because you get to turn the camera and he even gets the paw roll on top of the ceiling, kind of really performing optimally there. Let's see if he also is going to get the instant dive out of the pylon. Tries it, delays it a little bit too long, might not necessarily get the best angle, might have still been fast in the long jump that Stravos was opting for, but close now going into the boss refights, and both of them are going to be opting to fight Harriet first, obviously. Very good speedrunners, to say the least.
Yes. Topper first. You know, the unoptimal choice for essentially no reason, but, you know, Harriet is best bay, so that's why we choose Harriet first.
Exactly. So if you are a new viewer, guys, join us on the Harriet First fan club. It's great here. Once again, this is kind of like a rivalry. Kind of like a rivalry, I think, going on between runners. If you fight Topper first or Harriet first, it's literally, basically, exactly the same. But since that's actually a choice that we can make without suffering with time loss, it just happened to be this little contest.
Believe it or not, there are some categories where choosing Harriet first just so happens to be optimal.
Oh, no, that actually just seals it.
Yep. So if you didn't believe it before, you have to believe it now. Harriet first is the best choice because in all purple coins, she is the best bay. So for no other reason than that.
That's great. Alright, once again, we are looking at a situation where both of these guys are actually very close to each other. Stravos was already done with that Story Moon cutscene that Sui is now watching through. So it's definitely around 20 seconds or less, as far as the difference is concerned. And going into mech, that doesn't mean much. It only means much when they actually make it through there. Actually, if both make it through there without mistakes, then these 20 seconds do matter a little bit more. Losing 20 seconds in Moon, while possible and not too hard, is actually gonna require you to do, I think, at least 2 mistakes. You would need to maybe mess up a Bowser phase or die in Moon skip. and not die in moons. Actually, you could also die in moonskip. That actually happened last match, but that would lose you more than 20 seconds. But making a mistake in moonskip. Now let's look at mech first, because this will matter at first. Both of these runners are going to be trying to make it through their mistake list, and Stravos is going to be opting for the backflip, climb, gets the rainbow bubble quickly, and hopefully follows up with topper after.
Yep, spin pound looks good on topper's hit. Gonna be doing just fine here. Gotta get back up on the mech. Hopefully there are no weird discrepancies or occurrences here. We've seen on world record pace in the past, people get bucked off of the Robo Brutal for seemingly no reason aside from just being unlucky. So doesn't look like that's going to happen to Stravos today. Setting up for Harriet third, gets the hit. Going to be going for the fourth hit.
No. Stravos, very unfortunate. It's actually somehow still on top of the mech, but he's
my goodness.
Actually, the mech is about to throw him off again. He misses the ground, but actually he might be behind. He needs to capture the bird right now. This might actually be Sui taking the lead. That is one of the biggest mistakes he could have made there. He didn't even get the first, but also not the second one.
That's up to SuisaigaW now.
He will.
He's ahead. Just like that, the pace of this entire race has completely changed. SuisaigaW is going to be running away with this first game.
Oh, Stravos even struggling to make it up there. If he doesn't make it up with the bird real quick, the caps of the mech will close, and he actually falls back down, kind of clips through the mech into the leg. I'm not even sure what's happening right now, but this is one of the biggest mistakes he could make in mech. This is big. This is very unfortunate. Yeah, not even know what to say. I think SuisaigaW at this point needs to make a mistake and escape for Stravos to catch up.
Yep, that is huge for Stravos. Did have a bit of a comfortable cushion going into this mech fight, but has definitely lost that now. SuisaigaW is going to be running away with this.
Yeah, and I was mentioning earlier how making up 20 seconds in Moon is already hard, but I think Sui's lead has to be bigger now. Let's see. Yeah, Stravos touches the Moon. Sui touches the globe about now. So we are probably looking at a little bit less than 30 seconds, so around like 28, 27 for Sui, and making up that amount of time is pretty much only possible in Escape, unless you just make tons of mistakes at the start of Moon.
Moon Kingdom cannot really be understated, though. It's
sure.
very important to mention that the time losses that you can get in Moon Kingdom are detrimental, very, very catastrophic. And we were talking about breaking Luncheon up into a couple of parts. I like to break up Moon into a couple of parts as well. 3, to be specific. You've got that one part from the Odyssey into the Cathedral. You've got the one part from essentially the Cathedral to the escape sequence, so that Bowser refight in the arena, and then you have the escape sequence itself. If you die in any of those parts, you get sent back to the beginning of those respective parts, and so you can be losing quite a bit of time. We were talking about dying on Moon Cave Skip, for example. You die on Moon Cave Skip, you get sent back all the way to the Odyssey. We're looking at about 45 seconds of time lost there.
Yeah, this kingdom is really cruel. If you die anywhere before the Cathedral, you will be sent back to the Cathedral. If you die anywhere during Escape, you will get sent back just to the very start of it, even if it's inside of the Pillar Room. So the checkpoints are pretty rare throughout this kingdom, so mistakes might not happen too often, but if they do, the time loss is drastic. Now Sui is approaching that Moon Cave Skip section here. Is not going to opt for any cap stalls, making it over to that part. Hopefully gets the dives right this time, and he should be safe to go at least into the Cathedral, and it's going to be up to the Bowser fight and the escape section.
Yeah, he has successfully survived phase 1. And it does look like Stravos does have a lead of about 30 seconds. So it's really going, if he's going to lose time in the Bowser refight, it's going to take maybe 1 or 2 phases for SuisaigaW to mess up in order for Stravos to kind of come back to this.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we can't do much in Bowser to actually speed up the fight. He throws out this flame attack that we tend to make fun of in different ways. SuisaigaW is going to go for the spin jump here, single jump here. This is kind of a ground scan. All you need to do is just briefly be in the air to dodge the damage. And it's really the only difference that this fight has, other than some additional punching, to the Cloud version of this fight. But mistakes do lose you just as much time, and you do not want to miss those fast side grabs.
And it's kind of funny, because the refight is supposed to be something that's more difficult, but as far as the speedy boys are concerned, it really doesn't seem that way at all.
True.
Because with the way that we set up these hat grabs, it actually gives you a little bit more time to set yourself up, and makes it quite a bit easier, rather than having to roll all the way across the arena and get there in time. So the fire phases is actually quite laughable in difficulty advancement.
Alright, Sui is through the Bowser fight. He is going to make his way over to capture Bowser and then start off his escape section, which, even though this is relatively basic, it's just some jumps, quote-unquote. Pillar Room is hard, but doing Pillar Room fast is hard, but avoiding dying there is relatively easy as long as you don't try to do anything too fancy. Sui is at least going to be trying to take the optimal lines here, kind of only using one foot to walk on these falling blocks. But yeah, to skip and Pillar Room will be the only scary sections, and Pillar Room is not necessarily scary if you know what you're doing.
Yes, that's right. The worst thing that can happen is the infamous Invisiwall, which of course we have seen in GSA play in the past. Just a very unfortunate situation where you try and throw a fireball just as you're approaching that final platform, and the game kind of locks you out of it, and there's not a whole lot you can do to fix that situation. But I think these runners, as far as Invisiwall is concerned, have learned their lesson, and probably will not be opting to get that optimal fireball in just to be safe.
Yeah, I feel like Curbs in this one race really set a statement. Seems like that's not happening anymore. Runners really, because you can actually actively avoid that invisible wall from happening as long as you wait with your final clawing and shooting, because if you claw or shoot a fireball as the last pillar hits the middle core, that's actually what caused the invisible wall to happen. So as long as you avoid that, you can. And Sui is getting a pretty nice first pillar here, about to close out this match, as long as he is not falling into any holes. He should have this one in the back, and we have a series, to say the least. Looks like Sui is getting those fireballs into the last block, is making his way to the core block after a little bit of some stalking is happening there with some missed shots. But yeah, good stuff. SuisaigaW is going to be clawing into this final block, about to capture the pylon here, got the pylon. And this is probably our first Sui win of this set, of this big set. Sui taking it with a 101.15. Very neat stuff. Stravos close. Very unfortunate mistake at Mech, which is not gonna get him his third win, but that means we have a series for sure.
Yep, we have a real tight one on our hands. You know, SuisaigaW with another win can probably, well, he will be forcing a set 3, essentially, between these two runners, which would be the first time that we've seen it in this GSA playoff action. So hopefully SuisaigaW can push that so that we get one more day of Super Mario Odyssey, but it's not over for Stravos yet either. With 2 back-to-back victories, he can reclaim this series.
Yeah, amazing race, really close stuff. Stravos actually losing his lead during Mech, but since they both just had such an intense race, we are going to give them a little bit of a break. And yeah, James and I will be right back to cover the second race of the series whenever Sui and Stravos are ready to go again. So stay tuned, guys. We are back as soon as possible.
Gonna start.
All right, and I am back here in this second match between Suisaiga and Stravos on the second series here between these two runners. And yeah, Suisaiga taking this first match after a pretty interesting comeback. Stravos making a uncommon mistake there during mech, falling off during that last hit. So let's see how this one's gonna go.
Yeah, interesting to see. You know, we were talking about how the pacing and how these guys were having very similar of Stravos playing just a tiny bit cleaner and Sui playing just a tiny bit more optimal in some places. And that just was enough for Stravos to kind of maintain the lead all the way until that one final and kind of devastating mistake. But all it took to give Suisaiga the victory here. So we'll see how this plays out the next time. I feel like if Suisaiga plays a little bit cleaner, then he may be able to edge out the win in the second game. But if Suisaiga continues to make some of these like smaller mistakes, and you know the pacing is kind of the same as the last run, then Stravos might be able to edge it out as well. But it really does come down to these kind of major mistakes to really throw it in one direction or the other. Suisaiga still coming away with a 101.15 in that first race, which is phenomenal race time. So, you know, playing well, not making major mistakes at all.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really interested to see how the second race is going to come down to. We have seen, I think we've seen Stravos with a lead in every single race so far. I think in the first series, in the first match, Suisaiga was holding a lead, especially at the start. Happened to make some mistakes in the mid game, and Stravos closed that gap pretty efficiently. But even throughout this entire race, after Sand, I think Stravos was leading for the entire time up until this mech mistake.
Yes, right from the beginning, with the exception of maybe Cascade Kingdom, where he actually no, even in Cascade Kingdom, Suisaiga I guess took the initial kind of mistakes in Cascade. Stravos only had that one mistake with the Madame Brutal fight where he just missed one of the phases, but was not enough to lose him the lead. He did manage to keep it all the way through, but I think a lot of Suisaiga's minor mistakes could be attributed to maybe just a little bit of needing to wake up, needing to warm up, needing to kind of get in the groove of the game. So it'll be interesting to see if Sui is able to even improve on his time from last race. Already coming out of the gate a little bit better off.
Oh my god, I love this. This is actually something we've seen all the time, and we have some beautiful sync happening here throughout Cap Kingdom. And we actually saw a difference here. Stravos was not going for a spin pound in this frog room at the start, and instead for a normal roll. We're actually even seeing some different frog jumps, and looks like Stravos might have made up a little bit of time actually with his frog movement. This frog movement is known to be the fastest one to choose when you jump on that lower staircase. It's relatively unpopular, but actually seems to be the fastest one. Stravos using it here efficiently, but looks like a pretty close cap. Both of them getting a fast topper as well, but Stravos leading by probably, yeah, maybe a second.
Yep, not a whole lot more than that, if anything.
If even, yeah.
Stravos looks like he's going to be coming out with a 221. Suisaiga right behind with a 222. Good cap times so far for these guys. And into Cascade. Now, it used to be coming into Cascade was it used to be kind of a dream. I used to think that Cap Kingdom was the hard kingdom, and then Cascade was a little bit of a break as you enter into Sand. But with things like wall jumpless, FMS, and the chest clip,
Fast chest clip
has been basically the opposite story. It's just more tedious stuff to work with. I suppose the water FMS just in general is a little bit more calming than the rock version that we used to do, but at the same time...
Okay.
Yeah, as we see here, a little bit of a difference here. Suisaiga might not have gotten the optimal setup for that wall jumpless FMS, had to back it up and do the wall jump version, which is the safer and easier way to do it. Going to be losing him a little bit more time, unfortunately, but he is going to be still in this.
Yeah, and I was about to say, Sui is a little bit too close to make that wall jump list happen. He just adapted accordingly and actually just did the wall jump, didn't lose him much time. Now let's see if Stravos is actually going to be able to fight this boss accordingly. He gets the first phase this time. If he gets this one, this would actually be his first time during the entire series that he gets this fight optimally. He did take damage at first, is going to capture the change up in time, and is going to hit Mana Brutal just fine. He took damage at the start, but that actually doesn't matter, and specifically all boss fights or all multi-moons, since these do not refill you. I mean, they do, but there's just no animation that actually shows that.
A little fascinating thing that Stravos is doing here that you might not notice, and probably saving him just minor portions of a second, is that when you throw Cappy 3 times in a row, the third time that Cappy comes out, he comes out quite instantaneously. So Stravos was using that to his advantage, throwing Cappy an extra time before the Madame Brutal is able to throw out Chain Chompykins, so that when he does need to do the capture, the third throw is as instant as possible, saving him a little bit of time. And it's neat little optimizations here that you might not be able to notice just at maybe thinking that they're just there for show or just to be flashy, but you know, there is actual speed purpose to these things.
Ooh. Pretty stunning spin pound from Stravos there. Sometimes you get these amazing spin pounds where you really see, okay, I don't think this chest flip is going to work. He was pretty low. So he is actually going to be behind after this very fast capture from Sui to actually capture the globe after this one. And we've seen it a lot, man. Cascade is just not over after this fight. This chest clip is... I am actually really interested to see some stats on this, but I think chest clip, fast chest clip in this league might have around only like a 50% consistency. We've seen a missed chest clip pretty much like almost every race, and we've seen a missed twice for both runners sometimes. Also, there was these races where both of them got it, but yeah, chest clip still very hard, especially the fast version.
Yep. If you are looking to do this for the first time at home, the most easy and consistent way to do it is to just kind of step up onto the chest, face towards the camera, throw Cappy to open the chest, and by the time you land back on the edge of the chest, you will be able to backflip and cap throw and clip through. And that is probably the easiest way to set it up, but of course these runners are at the top of their game and are looking to do it a little bit faster than that, so the actual fast clip chest...
Wow.
The fast clip chest setup.
The fast chest clip setup.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah, definitely. So what I actually want to currently talk about is that Suisaiga didn't get the fast chest clip, and that actually caused him to not only... Yeah, this is pretty much a frame-perfect sync almost. Let's see. Yep.
Wow.
Let's see fadeouts. Yeah, really close. I feel like Suisaiga's game feed might be a little bit miscropped. Actually, probably going to be talking to production about this briefly. Seems like they might be a little bit cut off weirdly. Like, that's what I noticed. This text seems to be at the very bottom. We can probably fix that mid-race. But very, very close right now. Stravos actually effectively making use of the fast action guide skip and going to be taking a lead over this synced up spin pounds. And it looks like Stravos might have just taken the lead by a little bit less than 0.2 or something, like really around that margin.
It's amazing that that's all it really takes to bring things back. And entering Sand Dram here, going for the ice version. Both of these guys getting it on this attempt, and you know, really forcing this race to stay nice and close now. Sui did have a lot of trouble in Sand Kingdom the first time we were here, a little bit of sloppiness with his movement, but looks like he is kind of coming into his own here, avoiding those cactus very nicely.
Yeah, this section can be quite annoying, especially the spin pound here. Sometimes the spin pound will actually not uncover the moon quite yet. It's kind of a weird hitbox on this one, but that's all minor stuff. Swing slip, still one of the major tricks in Sand. You can lose so much time there if the clip doesn't go well, and both of them will at least get the first clip first try, opening the chest very fast, very nicely. Actually, Sui picking the left coin, Price was picking the right one, but Sui didn't get many coins at all. That was a very, very... that was, yeah, I mean, actually only like almost 20 coins difference, but not much. The difference here is that Sui is not getting this clip first try. We do like to say that one miss is decently fine because the bird moves a little bit closer to you, so you won't really lose much time, even though it looks like it right now. But leaving Sand, it might not be as visible anymore.
Yeah, as long as you make it within those first 2 tries, you'll be very much okay, because when you get to the Oasis, the bird will be essentially right up in your face.
Yeah, we are pretty much looking at 3.5 seconds right now, which is around the time this moon animation takes. I'm assuming Sui's going to touch it when Stravos is done with it. That's pretty much what we are looking at. And the bird will probably equalize that a little bit more. And if anything goes well, we might actually see pretty much a live comparison between a non-lake clip and lake clip lake.
Yep, so long as these guys do their notes moon correctly, we will indeed see just how much time that lake clip route can save if Sui's able to pull it off optimally. Yeah, Sui making up just a tiny bit of time with that bird. The bird in a location that is a little bit more optimal for him to grab, but also suffering a little bit more of a sloppy notes. Stravos' notes were much cleaner, and he's on his way to the Odyssey already. But solid times in Sand Kingdom from both runners still. Stravos going to be coming away with probably a 10.05 or 04 exit here, which is phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, I was just saying 4 because 4 was the difference that I caught on the globe hit. So 4 seconds of difference with an optimal lake clip. Sui could bring this back immediately in lake, and then he is going to get that extra time save in metro, which we have to ignore for now. It looks like barely a 5, maybe a 10.06, but we're looking at 4 to 5 seconds of difference, and that's around the time that a good lake clip can save. So it would be awesome to see Sui break even just to the route difference.
Yeah, so long as he gets it on the first try, doesn't get any fake clips, doesn't have to set it up for very long, then he will be making up this time over Stravos. Unless Stravos decides to pull a curveball and try late clip himself, but I don't see that happening.
Exactly. All right, let's start this one off. Last time, Sui was actually able to get a pretty perfect lake clip, got capital clip immediately, no fake clips as you were talking about earlier, and performed the out-of-bounds movement nice and fast. Let's see if he can repeat that. That would be really interesting to see. I'm really rooting for that. I'm not rooting for any runner, but I'm rooting for seeing that live because it would be awesome.
Yep, us commentators do have to eliminate our biases. Oh, but that being said, Sui does get that set up immediately. Very fast late clip, and we're going to see just how much of a difference that makes. Obviously not quite yet. Stravos grabbing this Dory Moon first, and we're going to see Sui grab the Dory Moon quite a bit after. However, Stravos does have to deal with Rango the entire fight, and the multi-moon animation cutscene that goes along with it. So all of those things added together, SuisaigaW is going to be making up the time here.
Absolutely. And it's once again going to be quite interesting to actually observe kind of a live comparison between Lake Clip and Rango Lake routing live, because it almost seems like there's no way this is faster, right? Because Stravos is going to touch this last moon before Sui even gets close to his last moon, and he has to warp. But that not only, I mean, this is already the first cutscene now. That's kind of annoying, but especially the cutscenes after you actually touch the multi-moon are incredibly long. You see, Sui still has to pick up 2 moons, but Stravos is going to sit through this cutscene pretty much until Sui catches up. Like, I'm assuming with his lay clip, we might see a pretty much synced up globe hit.
Yep, I would be very surprised if not that. SuisaigaW grabbing this moon here. You can see that Stravos is being kind of sent back to the Odyssey by this multi-moon just as SuisaigaW is warping away. And Stravos does have to kind of sit through this celebration animation as well. And just like that, very, very close to synced.
And now keep in mind that on a technical level, SuisaigaW would be ahead, quote unquote, because he's already through that Cappy text that I mentioned in the first race. This is another time save that he's going to get through this route in Metro. But we are looking at an almost synced up fade out here. Way less than a second of lead for Stravos now going into Wooded, where we are going to be seeing our next live comparison between the tree route and the story moon route, which is a little bit slower.
And as long as Sui plays that clean as well, he might just make up that half a second that he is losing by right now. But yeah, the problems that Sui had in his very first run have seemed to have melted away in this particular run. He did pull away with the victory due to a very major mistake by Stravos, but Sui playing a lot cleaner this time, and it's going to take even less of a mistake, I think, from Stravos for Sui to pull away the second victory here.
Sui gets a way better line there on that bunny, though. That was very noticeable. He saved some time there immediately. It's going to cause him to obviously jump into the bunny a little bit later, it looks like, so might not have mattered much, but seeing these live things is very interesting. Now, Sui actually didn't get the optimal first person there. He didn't stand in the right spot. If you do that pan out after the first person, wouldn't have happened for him, but it did. So he didn't stand at the optimal position, not really saving time with that, but he might save time with this tree route, depending on how well he can actually perform these uproot boosts.
That looked extremely clean.
Yeah, the movement up there, very good. Maybe not the best boosts, but the... Oh, okay, never mind. Probably, yeah, probably not saving time here. Unfortunate.
Stravos, however, missing his nut clip, so he's going to have to go around.
See that? That's huge.
He's going to have to go around. He's going to be setting up for this rock clip here.
That's really annoying. This clip is one of the very, very most awkward clips to do. And if he doesn't get through here fast, he's going to burn seconds. SuisaigaW is going to be able to get the clips. Stravos almost clipping back in. So we are actually going to be seeing them at this out-of-bounds section at the same time. But keep in mind, Sui does have that extra moon. That's how much time Nutclip saves. And he's ahead already.
Yep. SuisaigaW, again, 1 moon ahead, going to be... Oh, no! Takes the dive towards the railing, thought he had the spacing right, but he's actually going to have to reset up this ramp. Very quick backup, though, for the ramp,
might not
but
make
not
it again.
enough height. He's going to have to set it up again.
That is huge, both with major mistakes here at the start of Wood. I hope he did get enough height this time, really close. Almost falling down back again. But I think SuisaigaW is actually, believe it or not, still in the lead. It doesn't look like it right now, but we had a pretty similar situation the last time. And as long as Sui doesn't make a mistake in this maze section, even with both misses on the ramp, I think he could still slightly be in the lead.
You know, it is tough to say. They're about a red maze apart. But yeah, Stravos does have to sit through that cutscene still.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty sure he's still in the lead. He will get a nice moon grab here. SuisaigaW having to back up this spin pound out of the maze, so losing some additional time. Also grabbing that checkpoint, loses his momentum. So that's going to be close. I feel on paper, SuisaigaW might still be ahead. Grabbing that story moon actually takes you around 20 seconds, and this moon that he's grabbing right now around 18, but he doesn't get the fast moon grab, so forget what I just said, and we are probably looking at a tiny lead from Stravos, if maybe? No, maybe not. I don't think so, actually. Oh, wow, Sui's still leading by a tiny bit. Dude, not getting Nutclip loses so much time.
Yep, and to think that just how many attempts the rock clip really did take is going to take its toll on Stravos here as well, of course. If he had gotten it first try, he might have had a little bit of a lead coming in here, but that rock clip is especially finicky, and it's also not something that many runners practice actively, just with the hopes that Nutclip is going to be consistent for them, essentially. And especially in your day-to-day play, when you're going for your PB attempts, if you miss the nut clip, you basically just hit the reset button immediately. So rock clip is definitely something to have under your belt in your repertoire for a race situation like this. So Stravos, we're actually perfectly synced now all of a sudden. Stravos having a little bit better of a tower, it looks like.
Yeah, his uproot movement there was really good. He actually took the lead during that uproot walk. Wow, this is amazing. Okay, triple jump versus cap throw. Let's see what's faster. Live comparison, but Stravos will actually miss the nut break, so Sui taking the lead now. Stravos has a weird angle right now. Okay, he threw Cappy to adjust that.
A little bit of strange movement, that uproot getting in the way of Stravos there, so had to kind of improvise with a triple jump situation there. And SuisaigaW does look like he's going to be walking away with the victory, with the lead in this Wooded Kingdom here. But yeah, a very, very crazy one. I was mentioning earlier that Luncheon Kingdom is like the late game time sink, and Wooded Kingdom is definitely the early game time sink. There's just one after another rapid fire succession of just quick and tight movement that you need to do. And if you miss anything, you're losing time in giant, giant chunks. As we can see here, different scenarios, but you know, the same kind of devastating time losses coming from these runners.
2 seconds of lead here for Sui. Additionally, with that, I always like to consider this little time save that he's going to get in Metro as well. But let's just call it a 2-second lead for now, which is what we can visibly see right now. Just barely getting a 43 there. Or maybe, like, it might even be less than 2 seconds. Incredibly close now, getting into Cloud Kingdom. And I did talk about how actually for a long time Sui used to have some issues in Cloud, but ever since I actually started bringing that up again, that was during a time where he was at the very top of the game, and he had like amazing early game paces, and they all kind of faltered in Cloud. But ever since I mentioned that, he never really showed any more mistakes in Cloud, so hopefully being able to do that again.
We shall see for sure. Getting off to a clean start here. This first phase in the manipulation going well for both runners here. A bit of an awkward setup, looks like, for SuisaigaW there, but was able to get the hit on the hat just fine. Looking to manipulate again.
Yeah, Stravos won't. That's actually interesting to see. So you saw how for Stravos, Bowser's going to jump 2 spaces now. Sui had him only jump 1. That's actually this little time save that we consider the Bowser manipulation, where we hit him from a specific position, and he is actually going to save a tiny bit of time because of that. Now going into Lost again, we did see some very solid Losts out of our runners last race, and actually throughout the series, both of them didn't make mistakes in Lost so far. In every other series, we had some big issue, like at least once happening in Lost. Not so much in this one. These guys tend to have very clean Lost. SuisaigaW even consistently performing the up throw dive at the very end out of the little alcove from where you get the bridge moon. So hopefully seeing that again. Now Sui actually does this very cool strat. Stravos shows off why Sui is so smart there. Actually something that's really cool to see live now. He didn't do that home. Sui does like a home to make Cappy return to him, assuring him that he's going to get the Cap return jump. Stravos didn't, missed out on the Cap return jump because of that, and had to land on the lower ledge, not allowing him to actually roll across. And that loses quite a big amount of time. When I say big, it's like 2 seconds. But as far as Lost goes, that's not laughable. That's quite a big amount for Lost.
Yeah, the Lost is one of those kingdoms where you kind of just have to do everything correctly and hope for the best, because if you don't do it right, you're going to do it horribly, horribly wrong. So typically you don't want to make any kind of big mistakes in Lost. Purple poison surrounds everything. If you hit the purple poison, you go back to the Odyssey. So the further you get into Lost Kingdom, the more punishing the time loss actually is as well.
Absolutely. Now, so you had a really weird spin happening there during Klepto. Didn't keep his momentum. I had to spin it and wait, because you do want to play the section carefully. If you like cap throw during that spin, that cap throw might land right in Klepto's mouth or beak, I guess. So Cappy might be gone. They're avoiding this one. So he gets this, the cage critical. Stravos actually gonna bonk and is getting hit by the repeatal, even dying at the very end. And that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make in Lost.
That's the worst situation too. Sometimes if you miss that triple jump, there are scenarios where, you know, the cage can still break. You can still kind of back it up in a way that is not so detrimental, but Stravos actually getting the worst possible luck here. Not going to be able to open up this cage, and he's going to use... Oh no!
That hurts a lot. Wait, so he actually he didn't touch the poison, he touched the surface of the tree.
He touched the root.
The root of the tree, which, since Klepto was not activated, caused him to actually get the trigger happening, and that's after... Now, that's actually the biggest time loss in Lost. The one that he had happened before is probably the second biggest, and now both of them happen to him. He needs to get Cappy back first, and then he has to get 2 moons, probably. I mean, getting the cage moon and the moon in under the bridge would still be fastest from this position. But that hurts, dude. And Suisaiga's already in Night Metro. Stravos, I don't think is feeling it really anymore. He's really... It doesn't look like he's super motivated. Didn't really like spin pound afterwards. That has to hurt. Now, Stu is still making some mistakes, and on a technical level, this race is obviously not over, but you see Stravos' gameplay right now. He seems to be mentally affected by mistakes that I absolutely cannot blame him, especially if since he's behind in the series, and if he was to lose this race, which we are looking at a situation where that's, I guess, likely. That can obviously affect your mental... Oh, no.
Just a poor going for Stravos now all of a sudden. You know, they were both so tight together going into that Lost Kingdom, and just all it takes is that one fatal mistake to kind of shift the momentum, you know. And, you know, it's not over, you're right. It's absolutely not over, but Sui is still playing very well, and we have a huge gap between these two runners. We were saying in the past race that it's not very common to see these runners this far apart, but you can see that that particular mistake has just torn it from Stravos.
Yeah, I can definitely understand the frustration. This is around the gap where you need to believe in a miracle, kind of, which we've seen those miracles happen. Almost not getting that dive there. Stravos a little bit stuck in that ground pound animation. It would have obviously been a super frustrating death. But let's observe, as long as this is still going. Still a lot of run to go through.
Stravos' play here not looking terrible. He's looking like he's going to be picking up the momentum a little bit here. Getting that optimal roll across the girder. Sui suffering another kind of nasty wiggler pattern here.
He might actually get a 3 cycle if he doesn't shoot quick here. Wow, okay. He's shaking, and I can see why, because that was clutch. That was a game remove. Actually, getting a 3 cycle there might have already changed things up a little. So it's definitely not worth to call things over, because that was close. He almost had it happen there. Going into the day portion, Stravos now still starting up the fight. And Sui's coins are actually drastically low. He's at like 65, so there's no way he gets enough coins up until the next Kingdom decision. Gonna have to go into Seaside first.
Which is not a big deal as long as he remembers to do so. Stravos, meanwhile, is kind of sitting on the cusp of what is acceptable for going to Snow first. There are a couple of extra coins that you can pick up along the way in Day Metro, and with the 10 or so coins that you kind of just pick up in Snow anyways, he will be all right to just go about doing that. It always was kind of weird to me that the way that we set up the Wiggler, for some reason you just get some free coins out of the blue. I'm not sure where they come from.
Yeah, I've seen that. I think if the tank dies or something, like if the Wiggler hits the tank with a fireball, I don't know. Like there's like another tank, you know, the one that we don't capture, but I don't necessarily know where that actually gets generated from. There are some weird instances of getting coins in this game. If you ever watch like these coinless runs, where suddenly a coin pops up and you have to do some research where it's actually coming from.
Yeah, but apparently it is possible to beat the game without collecting any coins, which is pretty fascinating. Not getting all of the unique moons, of course, because that does require purchasing some things, some outfits, among other things. Purchasing the moons, of course, from the shop. You can't get all of the unique moons without buying those ones. So, but you can beat the main game without having collected a single coin.
I think, funnily enough, there's like version specific. There's like this, to get charts in Bowser's, you obviously need to break this block. And you can actually do so by poking it with a Pokio 100 times. Now, I think it's version specific because in some versions of the game that gives you a coin and in others it doesn't. So I don't think you can get a coinless run in all versions. But there is definitely a version in this game where you can poke this block, get the shard, and escape coinless. Like, who even coded it into the game, by the way? Poking that block 100 times with the Pokio instead of shooting a can. Like, why?
I guess some people who may not have caught onto the whole bombs breaking the boxes thing, you know, they needed a different way.
I guess. Interesting stuff coming there from Nintendo. Maybe they also knew about people trying a coinless run, but I don't know. Okay, Sui got some coins along the way here in Metro. Once again, that's not going to be enough. 71. He needs... I think you'll find out like 87. You can get like 13 coins as you run through snow without a big time loss or like without any time loss. But that's about it. So he has to go to Seaside first, which is going to split up our runners a little bit more going into this mid-game portion.
Stewie has been flying through Metro Kingdom.
Oh, yeah.
Fancy little spin jump to get up to that moon there. That was very nice. Very flashy. And it doesn't look like Sui's going to be coming in sub 30 in this day Metro, but considering the wooded he had and how close it is going to be to a 30-minute flat time, regardless of that fact, is just phenomenal stuff. It just goes to show how far this game has been pushed. I remember several months ago when the very first sub 30 Metro was achieved by Chaos and how big of a kind of an accomplishment that was for the community and for everybody. And now we're at the point where Little Curbs is getting 29-25s in races. Just absolutely crazy stuff. And almost all of it is just movement, and that to me is just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, and that obviously was an amazing run. Shoutouts here to D whatever raiding with the crew on this potentially last race of this specific series, not this matchup. It's looking like Sui might take this win. It actually is going to cause us to get our first third best of 3. And who else? Like, why would it happen to anyone but to Stravos and Sui?
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah,
thematic.
If nobody else, it definitely deserves to be these guys. And you know, we've seen this in their playoff matches before too. We've had these best of 3 situations with the finals in their respective tournaments, and they've pushed them to that as well. So it's a very poetic kind of situation for Sui and Stravos. They've really gone above and beyond to provide kind of the entertainment factor and the really wow factor when it comes to these league races. They're so evenly matched, they're so consistent at races, and it really does come to show here. Suisaiga did choose Seaside first. He is aware of his coin count and playing smart, and will have no issues with the shopping moon later on.
Yeah. There's way more than 30 coins there. I think it's around 40 just in that little shortcut section. And then probably some other coins scattered throughout the underwater portions there. Actually, interesting how this specific Sphinx vault doesn't have any coins.
It's true.
Because like the other Sphinx vaults have like huge amounts of coins. The one in Moon has like 300, the one in Sand has close to 300, but this one only gives you a Moon.
Yeah, kind of an underwhelming Sphinx vault in my opinion. Could just be that Nintendo didn't want you to be spending all of your time underwater and getting coins and putting yourself in danger perhaps, but you know.
Really unfortunate, because I mean, it's really unfortunate for me because I've been spending time routing this like darker side dupes category where you're allowed to buy those duplicate shop moons, and if there were some extra coins in there, it would be awesome because you get that moon anyways. But Nintendo didn't think this Sphinx question was worth coins, I guess.
Yep, unfortunately not. Going to be having to get your coins in other places. Now, a very interesting category. It's kind of been on the table for a while, this idea of using duplicate moons to achieve the goals of some of these longer categories. And you're putting in some work to doing the darker side dupes, and it really comes down to the hint arts, I think. Before, it wasn't really possible to make a darker side route any faster by buying duplicate shop moons. Going out of your way for some coin stacks might have helped a little bit, but probably not too much. But there are a lot of these coin hint arts available to you in 1.2 that change things quite a bit.
Stravos gets the wall kick down there on the bridge. Actually, again, man, I feel really bad for me. Obviously, it's to deal with some super annoying stuff in Lost. But this is also super frustrating. That's actually the reason I've been going for the wall jump on the right side, like just because I don't know what causes this wall kick down. Super weird. Stravos is gonna try for a very quick snow clip and isn't gonna make it. I would have been pretty confident that that looked like a good position.
That looked pretty close, but it did look like he was wedged in between that wooden pillar and the wall. Sometimes that just pushes you out a little bit.
Yeah. Solid Seaside from Sui, who's now going to be making his way over to Snow. Don't forget, he hasn't actually been to that kingdom yet. He does have the coins required now to pick up the shop moon. Might have acquired a lead close to 2 minutes at this moment.
Yeah, it does appear that way. They're both in Snow Kingdom together. Doesn't make... it's not a big surprise. Snow Kingdom is the longer of the two, so even if they were much closer together, it would make sense they'd be in Snow together rather than Seaside. But that being said, yeah, Suisaiga approaching Snow Kingdom a lot earlier in the kingdom than Stravos probably would like to admit.
Yeah, Snow, once again. Ooh, okay. Unfortunate mistake. Gonna have to reset up that jump, not getting... You can actually intentionally bonk there, because when you bonk, and we used that actually quite a few times during the run, Mario's hitbox slightly extends, allowing us to grab moons that wouldn't be in reach quite yet. Some runners like to do that on the pot moon in Luncheon.
And also another instance of that in Snow Kingdom itself, the very first of the two Goomba Room moons, we utilize that bonk to get up.
Ooh, both of them actually missing the snow clip. Unfortunate stuff. I think it's actually not because of the bonk, now that I think of it. The reason that works is probably because a roll gives you height, so you just don't bonk on the ground, but you bonk like a little bit higher than on the ground,
yes.
Which is probably why that actually works, now that I think of it.
Yeah, a little bit of a combination between using bonks to your advantage and the height that you get from kind of bouncing off the ground in a roll.
Oops. Sui missing that moon for just a little bit, but this looked so easy. I don't even know what kind of vector he got, but he was already almost on top of the island before even diving. I mean, not exactly, but it was really made it look really easy. The snow jump there for Stravos. Probably got a pretty good vector over, and it's going to be able to travel to Seaside just fine. The reason why leaving a Spiny alive in that poison room is optimal is because when the story moon spawns, it pans from Mario to the story moon and then back. So if you are sitting inside of the Blowy Joy, it will pan from the Blowy Joy to the Story Moon and then back. But if it will pan to your position where you killed the Spiny, it will obviously pan a little bit less. So that's why that's optimal.
Yeah, these minor optimizations, it's very similar to the reason we go into first person for the shop moons and for the drummer and for the initial lever pull in Cap Kingdom. It's just to manipulate the camera because a lot of cutscene, quote-unquote cutscene actions happen after the camera has panned to a specific spot. So if we're able to manipulate it so that the camera gets there faster, then of course we are saving time.
Yeah, and brief reminder, as I see new people coming into the chat, SuisaigaW is already done with Seaside. He did Seaside first, so it's actually Sui who is in a pretty massive lead. After he's done with that Snowdram, he's going to make his way over to Luncheon. And Stravos obviously just started Seaside for himself, so I can't give you guys an exact value right now, but it might be as close to 2 minutes as far as the lead that Sui has been acquiring, mostly due to mistakes, very, very rough and unfortunate mistakes and lost by Stravos. Sui is getting Snowdram, he's going to be collecting his last moon, and is then going to be traveling over to Luncheon Kingdom.
Makes it across the gap just fine, and he's on his way to Luncheon. And, you know, really no big mistakes to speak of from Sui aside from that Wooded Kingdom. He's still maintaining a very solid run. Still potentially on at least low 101 pace.
Yeah, this is a pretty good run. 30-15 natural exit, which probably rules out any 100 ideas. Not necessarily quite yet, but he did have some minor mistakes again. But he looks like to maybe just still beat his first run, which was a 101.40, I think. At 101.15, I think. So that's still on pace to beat that.
For sure.
Would need to play pretty well for that, though. Now, Sui is obviously already in Luncheon. Stravos is going to have to do this last section of Seaside. Also the fish clip. And the out of bounds move. And hopefully avoiding clipping back in. This would be the last mistake that he needs right now. After recovering actually pretty well. We saw him definitely affected by these mistakes, but it hasn't really seemed that way anymore. Like, he's still playing pretty well now.
Yeah, it did look like he was kind of admitting defeat in Lost Kingdom, especially towards the end, but it looks like he's kind of entering his groove again. That Seaside was very clean. And hoping he's able to keep the focus together and finish out this run. And we'll just see, you know, it is really going to come down to a huge mistake on SuisaigaW's part at this point, but anything is possible. We still have about 20 minutes left to go.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually, wow, saying it like that is actually really interesting. The late game is really long, dude. There's like 3 kingdoms left. And I mean, parts of Luncheon, but we've already played through like, what, 7? I actually don't know right now how many kingdoms there are. It's like 14 kingdoms, right?
It's amazing how fast the first, like, 5 are.
Yeah.
When you combine Cap, Cascade, Lake, and Sand together, we're only talking about 13 minutes worth of run. But then the last 3, where you have Luncheon, and then you have Bowser's, and you have Moon, and you have Ruined, all together, those 4 are over 20 minutes.
Yeah, Ruined not necessarily too long, but Luncheon and Bowser's obviously 2 of the longest splits in the run. And then Moon, while there's not too much going on, is actually also a relative, like above average length split. There's a bunch of cutscenes there, and obviously the long escape section, but it's still an above average split time.
Yeah, the amount of time it takes to do Moon Kingdom is about the same amount of time it takes to do Cap and Cascade together, for example.
Yeah. Exactly. Alright, Perona Plaza time for Sui. Stravos is in the Spearheart fight. Oh. It looked like a bonk or something. He kicked like a bean, I think.
Oh, I see, yeah, the bean goes flying.
I was also thinking that would have been a bonk. No, I think it's a can. It's a bean or a can or something is up there. I think it's a bean, actually. Yeah,
all sorts of little jelly beans lying around, and SuisaigaW did not like that one in particular, so I had to kick it on his way by.
He also does go for that bonk strategy to be able to pick up that moon, which is quite nice because you get to backflip as early as possible. We've also seen runners actually now go for a moon clip input there. So as that moon spawns in you, you try to be in that upside down position. That will cause you to get a little up warp, and then you can actually skip backflipping entirely. That's pretty cool. Alright, Forks time. And we did talk about how this room can potentially be really dangerous. A death here would entirely make this race look different, but Sui gets a pretty nice first section.
Just the jump across, gets the cap return jump as well to maintain a little bit of height and make that second jump a little bit easier. Clean Forks room from Sui here. Now he's going to have a little bit of a redemption opportunity here. Both of these runners not having a very good turnip clip in the last run. So
it hasn't been awful. It's just like a reset up, and then they did it first try.
Yes,
we've seen really big time losses there. So you're almost actually throwing this turnip off the mountain.
Maintaining his camera manipulation here. You'll notice that Sui is looking directly at the ground as he approaches this area, and that's just to keep the pan bro in a place.
Oh no! What? Okay, I thought that actually has been happening quite a few times recently. If you get like a bonk, you can fall without killing the pan bro, but I think his cap throw killed it. I don't think that's gonna work. Now that's not a great turnip flip, but he still is through there. But that's definitely a noticeable time loss. Wow, Stravos has... That's actually really good. Like, Cappy was on top of the Podoboo and it was really close to the ground. Yeah, he did the roll cancel to allow himself to do that.
And that turnip clip in specifics just goes to show that this race is not over yet.
Yeah, for sure. If Stravos gets a really nice one, it's gonna get stuck on that metal platform right there. That's obviously not a big time loss, but he has to reset up his jump. Sui going for the attack helicopter spin pound, as I like to call it, where he's like hovering over his target, approaching his prey. It's a little bit safer than trying to instant spin pound, because if you do miss there, that spin pound will just yeah, bring you into the lava, and especially at that section there's no backup.
Yes, exactly. And if you're on that part of the mountain, there is no real way to kind of back it up or set yourself up in a way. So... Oh! So Stravos really hated that pan, bro. There's absolutely a vendetta. Stravos really just did not like him at all, so I had to take it out on him.
Okay. I just liked his reaction as well.
He just kind of stood there, not really understanding what he had even done. But yeah, the poor pan bro didn't even see it coming. We're gonna have to send a very sad phone call to that pan bro's family later.
Yep. Now, actually, at first I was really excited because he got like an amazing spin pound into the turnip, did like the throw out of the triple jump, looked like a close position. He knew he had to do the setup again, but what happened next was unexpected, to say the least.
Yep, top 10 plot twists in anime 2019 for sure.
Exactly. Damn, that's frustrating. Sui lost a lot of time in turnip clip himself, and it might have even been close to what happened to Stravos, because he also had to like set that up again. So Stravos kind of intentionally killing. It was also not intentional, but Stravos threw the turnip at the pan bro, but SuisaigaW killed his own pan bro with a cap throw or something. So overall, not actually the biggest difference.
Yeah, which is unfortunate for Stravos because he did have an opportunity to save some time there, but you know, did kind of throw it away just to see through that turnip directly into the pan bro's face. So that's where we are at now. But now he's on his way. He's finally on his way to Ruin Kingdom, and an opportunity for another trash talk section, perhaps.
Yeah, trash talk. I'm not prepared today for trash talk. Dude, we have to. Oh my god, because Dangerous and I are actually going to be commentating the Super Mario Odyssey events at pace, and there's going to be a lot of racing action. We definitely need to do some prep work to be able to cover all ruined sections there.
Certainly.
That's going to be quite a lot of work. But yeah, talking about pace once again, let's just recap that, because right now, let's not fool ourselves. We are saying the race is not over, and it's not. But it's looking like Sui might take this race, leading to an ultimate last decider between those two guys for a the deciding series about who of them is going to actually be at pace. And yeah, pace, our first live competitive speedrun event. So far for Odyssey, we have the competitors Nicro, Vida, Chaos Pringle, and Lil Curbs. Very, very famous personalities in the any percent speedrun community. Arguably, definitely all in the top 5 right now. I mean, they all actually have sub-hour.
They do.
They all have sub-hour. The only one that is not there and has sub-hour is Goyuya. Not sure if Goyuya is really running right now. I haven't seen him much. He probably also takes a deserved break. But yeah, those two, Sui and Stravos, one of them is going to be our 4th competitor racing live at pace. Not only are we going to have racing content between Odyssey, SM64 and Celeste, but also a bunch of live showcases. So if that sounds interesting, make sure to type in !pace to get information on the live event. If you do want to go, registration is still open, but if you're not close to that space and if you can't afford getting there, that's absolutely no big deal. But make sure to catch it live on this specific Twitch channel here, twitch.tv/speedrun, when we start off at April 25th.
And it will be featuring Limcube and myself on commentary for the portions of Super Mario Odyssey.
Dude, that's actually going to be so hyped, dude. I just can't wait for matchups like Nicro versus Chaos. Actually, after watching both of them in their playoffs series and looking so dominant, I just can't wait to see them go head-to-head there.
Yeah, it should be an event for the ages, that's for sure. You know, speedrunning has had some highlights in the past with some big charity/fundraising events and, you know, meetups and get-togethers of that kind. But this is, from what I know, the very first of its kind, where the focus is less on awareness and charity promotion and more on the runners' skills and abilities and their own, kind of making it more of a competitive thing where the winners do take home some prizes. So very interesting stuff indeed, and I cannot wait to see how this all turns out. And if you are able to make it to the event, by all means, get your tickets right now. !tickets in the chat, and we hope to see you there.
For sure. Now, Sui just started off Bowser's, going for some fancy movement towards that ogre, something that he always likes to do. And yeah, overall in Bowser's, losing as much time that he would need to for Stravos to give a chance to come back is unlikely, but starting off with any mistakes, obviously Stravos could start believing again, and we've seen earlier how much time a missed mech fight can lose, because we were in a position where Stravos was like 20 seconds ahead, and after that mech fight he was like 30 seconds behind. So a difference of 50 seconds can easily happen in a bad mech, and after that we can be in reach of moon mistakes again.
Yep, it is not over until it is over, and even though there is maybe about 2 minutes of separation between these guys at this moment, just about anything can happen, as we're seeing right here. SuisaigaW really struggling to grab that final shard. Obviously not 50 seconds, but maybe somewhere along the lines of 5, and all it takes is a handful of those to bring Stravos back into this.
Now the Pokio did spare him. Looked pretty angry right there, almost poking him as he was making his way towards that story moon. Did spare him at the very end, and he's now going to be making his way into this Bowser Dram section again. Showed it off successfully last time. Let's see how it goes this time. Looks fast and nice, gets a power roll on the roof again, and hopefully also the instant dive out of this wire, which is actually quite weird. Gets a decent angle, yeah, very nice spin throw into the wire as well. Looks hot.
Yep, not only the angle that you hold your control stick, but also the timing of your jump and your dive out of that wire really does make a difference in making sure you go the right direction, because initially Mario's direction is kind of more upwards, more kind of directly forwards out of that wire, whereas we kind of want to go to the right a little bit, so you kind of have to hold like almost diagonally downwards. In order to make that work. Yeah,
I've actually seen Equan talk about a pretty interesting strat that I really want to try out, where you kind of hold left on hold right on the left stick and then up on the right stick. So basically turn the camera and then manipulates the camera in a way that you can just dive while holding forward on the right stick, and apparently makes it pretty consistent. Do want to kind of try that out. But Sui had some minor issues, let's say, in Harriet, losing a little bit of time here and there, but nothing major so far.
And on to Topper. This being the quicker of the two fights, but arguably the harder as well. But Sui showing no signs of stopping here.
Not yet, and that's awesome. Stravos is gonna opt to go for his signature strat there again. And it's actually so crazy how long these bunny refights take, because they are actually gonna meet again on that same kind of island of Bowser's Kingdom. SuisaigaW is gonna do his little story moon dance, and Stravos is gonna start off his boss fights. And even though the lead is so big, we spent so much time of the run in this section. They could have technically just seen each other if they were on the same map.
It's pretty fascinating to think that if there were some way to break the sequence of this game, there were some way for us to just continue along into Bowser's Kingdom without having to do these refights at all, how much time it would actually save. Like this, there are, you know, some suggestions about some really big sequence breaks and some time savers, things like, you know, Brunchin, for example, skipping all of the mid-game kingdoms completely, you know. But as far as like realistic time saves are concerned, and like if we were able to break the sequence in a new way that hasn't been discovered yet, this is another one of those really big ones. I'm looking at like almost 2 minutes.
Oh yeah, it has been tested with like mods, at least with our like current understanding of the game. If we would just literally start flying and just flew up all the way to Bowser, the fight would actually not trigger until we beat those guys. So that's kind of unfortunate. So we would really need to discover something major as far as changing the game goes.
Yeah, unfortunately is the case. Speaking of that fight though, SuisaigaW is approaching now. Looks like he didn't get quite the optimal setup that he wanted, so had to take a moment to just readjust his position, but then did get his backflips off just fine here.
Fortunately, no need to rush for him. If he's aware of his current lead, which these runners are allowed to check out the stream to get a feeling for how this race is going, which I think brings an interesting dynamic into this, because like if you're behind, you might go for these extra little fast strats that SuisaigaW doesn't need right now. So all he needs is actually safety and consistency to close this one out, getting the Harriet hit, and hopefully for him doesn't make the mistake that Stravos made earlier, where he missed that spin point, and he is gonna get it. Target acquired on that mech. Only moon between him and taking the second series.
And a unique situation, you know, of all of the other tournament playoff matches, this one will be the first and the only to make it to the third of the best of three. So really, like we said, a very poetic finish to this history between SuisaigaW and Stravos together.
For sure. Would be super awesome to see a game 3 on that one as well if it does happen. It would just really, once again, justify this matchup as such a legendary one.
Yep, and you never can tell. Looking at the schedule, it looks like that will be happening on Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, so stay tuned for that. Of course, that is assuming that SuisaigaW is able to hold things together and take the victory here.
Oh, so it will happen on Friday. Oh, yeah, I got confused by the schedule on my time zone showing it on Thursday, but just because the last race of this series might have like went after midnight. But yeah, it is on Friday, in fact. Sorry for the misinformation there earlier, but once again, you can type an exclamation mark schedule to check that for yourself, and we would definitely know, like after this weekend, we will know who's going to pace.
Yes, for sure.
Stravos this time getting the target acquired. Very nice, and let's actually check out the lead real quick, because I do want to see if a like death in pillars or something would be feasible. Looks like a 5606 fade out here for Stewie. And I actually don't even need to see the fade out. All I need to see is Stravos touching that moon, because that takes 1 minute and 5 seconds until you're done. Yeah, so that's around 20 seconds plus those 1 minute and 5 seconds, or around 1:25 which means a death of any shape or form in the escape, especially in the late escape, like Pillar Room would still allow Stravos to come back. So
it is not over.
Exactly, it's not over till it's over rule still applies.
And it is not entirely out of the question. Even in these league races, the top competitors, the top runners of Super Mario Odyssey, we have seen some pretty drastic failures. We've seen a couple of 2D skip fails. We have seen an invisible wall by one of the sub-hour holders himself, Little Curbs. So it is very possible, unlikely, but very possible that something can still go wrong here. And speaking of which, SuisaigaW with a little bit of a Moon Cave skip fail here, but able to set it up all right just fine.
Okay, I didn't really actually like that second position as well, but he is gonna make it work on his second attempt, probably losing. I always like this value, like 7 seconds on a missed moon skip because you fall so slow. That's something that I've been noticing. It can drastically vary, obviously, depending on where you mess it up, but that's an annoying way. And probably not as bad because he didn't even get the first bounce, but whatever, won't matter much so far. It's a small time loss. But now, actually, what does make it interesting, if there was a mistake in this fight, let's say last phase, then a 2D skip death might already be enough to actually reset this.
Certainly. Stravos approaching the Moon Kingdom now. He's just in his first section of it. Going for these vectors. And yeah, SuisaigaW on the second phase of this fight now. Honestly, the second phase being the hardest of the three, I would say. You don't get a damage boost to kind of set yourself up in an optimal way. You kind of just have to space yourself out accordingly.
For sure.
Sui doing just fine.
About to go into this last phase of the fight. Stravos is going to be getting this Moon Cave skip just fine. It's a nice dive on that, I guess, kind of stone bridge across the cathedral.
A very scary dive, in my opinion. Did look like he was just cutting the edge close there, but he knows what he's doing. But Sui landing his final punches. Just as Stravos enters this fight, Sui is on his way out. So it is going to come down to this escape. But Stravos actually trying to go for that optimal spin throw strategy to get the first hat and missing the first hit, having to chase Bowser down here.
Unfortunate, but it won't really quite matter anymore. Let's say it that way, because the only way SuisaigaW drops this is once again a mistake in the pillars room, and if that happens, he's probably going to lose more like maybe not exactly. Actually close to 2 minutes, like 1 minute 45, so even that mistake wouldn't have mattered, and Stravos could still take a victory if that happened. But SuisaigaW is going to try to avoid that at all costs. Now going into the 2D section. Oh no! Whew, okay, he was definitely probably feeling some increased heart rate right there.
Third time's the charm on 2D skip this time. Yeah, and a lot of these runners just have it kind of in the back of their minds, just exactly what they need to do. It all comes down to just muscle memory and making that trick work, but as soon as you hit your head, you know, the panic seeps directly in, and you just you can freak out immediately.
I just had to laugh about Monka Cozy, that's great. Great emote. Right there, coming into our chat as SuisaigaW is about to close out this match. Gets, I think, a 6-shot first early pillar, which is fine. 1 extra shot, you can get it in 5 if everything hits. But works. Only 2 pillars to go. This third one is looking good as well.
Oh, getting jebaited by that last rock there, but does land a clutch final hit there, and he's on the final platform swiping away. So not quite as good of a performance as the first race, but still coming in within about 15 to 20 seconds of it.
Yeah. Great stuff from Sui, who's going to be taking the series 2-0. The reverse of last series. Now Sui with both wins. The last series was incredibly close. The first race and this one was also really close. This one, all things considered, actually didn't end in the complete train wreck that it might have seemed like in Los Stravos. Didn't completely lose his composure and played very well still. Had one mistake here in the Bowser fight. Both of them had this hilarious turnip clip mistake. Actually, for Stravos, the one was really just funny to watch, but obviously unlucky that it happened. But that was it, really. He played really well still after seemingly losing his motivation to keep going, but good stuff.
And
as I say that.
Now Stravos is dancing around, really showing off. Just like the Titanic, Bowser's going to sink into the abyss. He's calling it this one, I think. Stravos knows that he cannot win. There are no points at stake for finishing any faster, so I think Stravos is going to take the graceful, the deaths here, and the loss.
Yeah. Unlucky race day today for Stravos. Definitely super unfortunate things happening to him there and lost. We know these days sometimes you just don't play as well as you usually do, and that's gonna be it for this series. Once again, guys, this is the most promising looking one so far. Make sure to definitely not miss that last series on Friday. It's gonna be pretty intense. We are gonna be definitely seeing on Friday who of these guys is gonna be going to pace. Is it Sui? Is it Stravos? Does it really matter because the series has to... I mean, it does, but the series has to be hyped regardless, so make sure to tune in on Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time to catch that one live. But Dangerous, thank you for commentating. We are going to be cutting it short. No interviews today, maybe interviews on Friday after the series is closed out. But... yeah, thank you guys for watching. Dangerous, thank you for commentating, and I hope you guys have a great night. We are going to be having some Mega Man later today, but it's still quite a bit ago, so I'm not sure if production plans to ending the stream or if it's just a long intermission. I'm assuming we are going to be ending it for now. But make sure to stay tuned, make sure to follow the channel, make sure to follow all 4 Odyssey community members involved in this: SuisaigaW, Stravos, Dangerous, and even myself. We are all doing Odyssey content. Maybe SuisaigaW does some Sekiro, which is also pretty hot, so make sure to catch that. But thank you for watching, and see you guys in the next one.